12th episode of the Mind Grinders podcast, your podcast focused on the modern player, but more importantly, the modern miller. We're talking about some fun stuff today. And who do I mean by we? Well, I'm joined by a co-host as always. Introduce yourself.
It is I, King Crab, BlitzMTG, A.K.A. Jack.
Oh, damn.
Changing the intro up.
Yeah, of course. Like, changing up careers, changing up financial situations, changing up
something like that.
Game days, all that stuff. A man of change.
Yeah.
A man of change. How you doing, Jack? How you doing?
Not bad. Yeah, it's been a little while since our last episode.
Yeah.
We've been kind of busy. I think last one was the Kamigawa review. I just moved. So it's been almost a month since then.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy times. There's been a lot of fun to be had with. Yeah. I think you've been enjoying Kamigawa a lot, right? Like, it's at least in a limited sense. So
I've been playing a lot of sealed and draft of Kamigawa. I think this is one of the best sets that I've drafted. I haven't drafted a ton because, like a lot of people know, I started in like Hour of Devastation, so I haven't experienced that many limited environments. But this is probably my second favorite behind Dominaria, which Dominaria is considered like one of the best limited formats of all time by a lot of players.
Yeah.
But like this has been really enjoyable. It's a little unbalanced in certain things, and I'm not going to get into the whole lot of things, but it's been a lot of fun. Being near my sponsored LGS, Knights of Thorn Games. It's been good. Lots of
lots
of games played, lots of laughs had.
I know that you're not experienced in limited when you say that this is a better format than Triple Guild Pact, because Guild Pact is known as the best set of all time. So Triple Guild Pact is just
I don't know if you're being sarcastic.
100% of being facetious. Triple Guild Pact was so bad.
See, I had heard that like Dragon's Maze was like the bad one of that set.
It was the third one. Was Dragon's Maze the third one?
Yeah, Dragon's Maze was the third one. Guild Pact
okay. Then my joke didn't land properly.
Is that even the same block? I might be a Papega here.
See, my joke didn't even land because I'm not even, I'm thinking of the set you're thinking of, but I did not name it right. So the joke didn't even land. It's fine.
Hold on.
But while you're looking that up.
Return. No. So we were talking about different. So you're talking about the Return to Ravnica block, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, yes. So Dragon's Maze, because it was RTR, Gate Crash, Dragon's Mage. And then Guild Pact is in the original Ravnica block, and so it's Ravnica City of Guilds, Guild Pact, and Dissension.
Ooh. Oh, Triple Dissension is therefore the best limited environment of all time. Yeah. So.
There's some pretty I didn't enjoy Ixalan block, even though that was just after I started learning how to play. Yeah. I did not enjoy that limited format. Weirdly enough, so Guilds of Ravnica blocks, the more recent one, I didn't play really any war, but I played a lot of Guilds of Ravnica and a lot of Ravnica Legions.
Yeah.
And I hated Guilds of Ravnica, but I loved Ravnica Legions. It's just
what were the colors? Because the colors were different too, right?
So because each was 5. So Guilds of Ravnica was Dimir, Izzet, Golgari, Boros, and Selesnya.
Wait, so you like that one?
No, I dislike that one.
Okay, because I remember that one was the one.
I did not enjoy really any of the decks. But then you go to Ravnica Legions, you have Orzhov, Simic, Gruul. What else did you have? You have Rakdos, and then what's the one I'm missing?
I don't know. I don't got the wheel.
Azorius.
Yeah.
But that one, I played a ton of Orzhov, which is just life gain drain stuff that Orzhov does.
Yeah.
And then I played a lot of Simic and Gruul, but to the point where I actually played Teamer most of the time, just Teamer monsters.
Yeah.
And I wrecked kids at the LGS with those two style decks.
I remember that was actually the one I kind of missed out on. I played the first one a ton because a new LGS or a game store, it's more of a hobby shop, like a board game shop. Mm-hmm. They started doing draft, and it was the first of the two that I played a ton of. And I remember it being super busted because there was a Dimir 4-drop in a cycle that had like flying and hexproof.
Yeah.
And there was only like one edict in the whole like block, so it was like extremely disruptive to play to
Yeah,
like
I
just
just
draw
didn't.
that. Yeah.
I just didn't enjoy any of it. But like, and then the next couple of years, like I didn't get to play much of the limited, whether it be for certain pandemic reasons or money reasons or whatever.
Yeah.
So picking things back up has felt good. Last thing I'll say about limited is not this weekend, so the next weekend, so the 19th. My LGS is holding a exclusive OG Innistrad block draft. So there's 10 spots. That you pre-register for, and it's one pack each of Innistrad, Dark Ascension, and Avacyn Restored.
Oh, okay.
For a good price. So I'm excited because that was years and years and years before I played Magic. So getting to experience that and like gonna look into that next week of like what kind of decks I can come up with and everything. So like I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. Back when limited was actually curated pretty well.
And I don't know, the limited's getting better lately. Like
I think there was definitely a dip. Like there's a point where absolutely. I think WotC was thinking more in terms of where to put their rares and mythics. But they've definitely been doing a little bit better from the thing.
So how you doing? I've talked a lot.
On my end, like
Elden Ring.
Yeah, I have nothing interesting to add to this conversation unless you want to talk about Elden Ring. And you know what? We're gonna leave that to the postcast. So I've been doing good otherwise. I've been living life other than
that. So Chef, how about you tell us why we're here?
There seemed to be a bit of a small announcement, and that's kind of what drew the cast, because we don't really have anything to talk about in Magic at all. Nothing happens.
Drew the cats.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, we have to bring on, the likelihood of PETA. We got to talk about some animals today, right? Because, again, there's no drama in the Magic community. There's no news, and nothing ever happens. We are a boring card game. Yeah. There was a little announcement on March 7 coming out a little bit, I think, like mid-afternoon. It's called the Banned and Restricted announcement. Yeah. Published by Wizards of the Coast.
That they didn't announce ahead of time. Like
no warning whatsoever. A little bit different, and especially when you think about how dramatic this event was, this announcement was, it's kind of crazy. So many of you listening to this cast will already understand or already know what's going on. Pioneer, they banned Lurrus of the Dream Den. Modern, they banned Lurrus of the Dream Den. And in Pauper, they banned Galvanic Relay, Disciple of the Vault, and unbanned Expedition Map. Jack, give me your first take. Just overall, how are you feeling about this BNR?
All right. So, just like as a quick thing,
yeah,
I don't think it was needed in Pioneer yet.
Yeah.
We can get into the reasoning that they gave, and I understand it. But I don't think it needed it yet. Modern, I still personally maintain that MH2 packages has been worse for Modern than Lurrus. I understand why they banned Lurrus. I'm not upset with the Lurrus ban.
Yeah.
Pauper, I know very little about Pauper, but I have friends who play Pauper, and they're like, Expedition Map brings back Tron. Disciple of the Vault means like Affinity is like really gonna change now.
Yeah.
And then like Storm is not allowed to exist.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. My Pauper opinions, like, I don't really have any because I don't play the format. But I have been playing more Pioneer lately. And obviously, Modern is my shtick. So.
Okay, so let's go. Yeah. Let's take this from bottom up then. In that case, let's go Pauper, Pioneer, Modern, right? Because the main focus of this is going to be the Modern discussion. So from a Pauper perspective, I think largely you're correct. One of the big stalwarts of the format has been Tron for so many years. Even back when I was playing Pauper, Tron was a very good deck. So it's been banned, unbanned. Like they had cards added and decreased from it to try and bring it in check. It's nice that they're kind of bringing it back a little bit with Expedition Map. Disciple of the Vault being banned makes sense with the ATOG ban. They're really trying to bring down Affinity. Affinity has been a good deck for years. The artifact lands are at common and legal in Pauper. Of course, the deck is going to be good. Galvanic Relay, exactly what you just said. think for those of you who don't understand the Pauper format, I need you to understand the amount of old and good free spells and storm cards that are actually common. The amount of artifacts and free mana stuff that's actually at common is absolutely mind-boggling. It is absolutely insane. So you can't allow cards like this to exist just because the rest of the support package is astronomical. It's absolutely crazy. You print a card like Storm, it's immediately like, people are jamming this at the top tables 100%, so they definitely need to bring it back in check. Even though Galvanic Relay is a Storm card that lets you play cards during your next turn, still a great way to set up. So that's the Pauper spiel, right? So Gavin Verhey wrote a fantastic kind of long article about it. Again, Pauper panel doing a lot for this format. Would be happy to see a big return for it in paper at least. In terms of the Pioneer ban, from what I'm seeing, right? Like, I guess the understanding is that Pioneer is growing as a format. It's becoming stronger and stronger. So they wanted to nip Lurrus in the butt before it became a problem. To my understanding, Lurrus is not a problem right now. There's actually a good variety in Pioneer from an outsider's perspective. Yeah.
It's kind of like the, if you played Standard in like 2018, it's, so when they banned like Ramanop Ruins and, Rampaging Ferocidon. People are like, Rampaging Ferocidon? Because they did, it was like the Rogue Refiner, that whole thing, like nerfing Teamer Energy. They're like, okay, well, when Teamer Energy goes, Mono Red and Red Black are going to be like the de facto best decks, so we're kind of trimming at it a bit, like preemptively. And then, Rampage Ferocidon eventually was unbanned, which was hilarious.
Yeah, because they're like, oh wait, this isn't a problem anymore.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. So like I said, I understand where they're coming from as they keep printing like really efficient spells, cheap spells, which a lot of modern legacy vintage players like cheap spells that are good. So as more go into Pioneer, Lurrus will get better and better. I don't really have too many qualms with that.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty good. Like, and what makes me happy about this, just like in general, is that there obviously has been a big rise in Pauper with a lot of people, like, recently in the Twitter or Magic sphere anyway, a lot of people, oh, Pioneer super fun, Modern sucks, let's go play some Pioneer. There's definitely been a resurgence. People definitely trying to make a big push because obviously it's not coming on Arena, because I guess WotC hasn't seen a good way to ruin the Pioneer format and monetize it to death like they have with Standard. So it's nice that Pioneer's still alive, and it's good to see for now, and it's good to see that they do want to put some effort in it. They're not going to let it die. So that does give me hope. I always have hopes of returning to the format, so it's nice to know it's being taken care of. But I think the big topic, of course, and we're not going to belabor this to death. I think Jack and I, we talked about this before the podcast. Many of you listening to this will probably already consume a lot of Magic content outside anyway, and you will have a plethora of different people to tell you a lot of things we're going to say. So we're hoping to provide some unique points here and there. But Jack, let's get right to it. How is the Lurrus ban? Not banned as a companion, as a card. It's not even being played in the main boards. How is this going to change Modern?
So it is going to change some decks drastically. Some decks that played Lurrus aren't going to change as drastically. Right. But I think it's going to have a decent effect on Modern as a whole. I am curious that they just banned it outright instead of just like as a companion. I would have liked to see that because I am personally of the opinion that you slowly tweak things, but you tweak them more often.
Right.
Kind of like A/B testing. And you should curate format, and that could be a whole discussion. There could also be a discussion of like, I think we should restrict cards. Not obviously in the Lurrus case, because like companion, you're just running one, but like as like an overarching like macro topic, like doing something like Yu-Gi-Oh does, where like instead of 3, which is their play set, you can have like 2 of a certain card in a deck or 1 in a certain deck, or it's banned. And maybe that might be an interesting thing.
Besides that's a deeper decision. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So besides that, Lurrus being banned ultimately means that a lot of the big a lot of the popular decks that weren't playing Lurrus are going to see an increase. You're still going to see some of the better Lurrus decks continue to thrive. But there are definitely going to be some changes, and I don't know how much you want me to get into that.
Yeah,
now,
I mean, yeah, let's start right with it. Like, I mean, let's go, really specific here. You're talking about changes. Give me, without even going into specifically what changes, what are 3 decks that you think will change off the bat?
So the big one is Shadow is going to change a lot,
right?
And the reason for that is Grixis Death Shadow changed a lot going to Lurrus. They cut the Street Wraiths, they cut the Gurmag Anglers, they cut the Temur Battle Rages to accommodate Mishra's Bauble, Ragavan, Darcy, Lurrus, these kinds of effects. Unholy Heats, list goes on. Right. Now without Lurrus, I still think we'll see Bauble. I think we'll see it less. Something I had... Oh god, I almost made a pun. Something I had thought about was when they used to play Thought Scour, maybe they play Consider instead.
Right.
Depending on things. Darcy becomes a lot worse.
Right.
And then what are they going to do on their top end? Are they going to go back to Gurmag Angler? Are they going to play Murktide Regent? I think the answer is they're going to play Murktide Regent.
Right.
But with Murktide, they have to rework their mana a little bit more to accommodate the blue. Because with Lurrus, it felt more like red-black shadow splashing blue.
Exactly. Like they're really just, it's drown in the lock sometimes, but it's really literally just
it's drown in the lock. It's like spell pierce, like spell pierces in the sideboard.
The main
expressive iteration.
There it is. Yeah,
yes.
There it is.
Yeah. And you have like dress downs, you have mystical speeds, like you have other stuff, but like it's mostly a red-black deck. It's Rakdos blue if you want to go with like the cons, like naming conventions, which I'm actually kind of a fan of. Anyways, so Shadow, I think as you put it, is needs to do some soul searching. or wait, no, sorry, that was a conversation I had with my roommate.
Hey, Shadow needs
I mixed things up. I apologize. Shadow needs to do some soul searching. It's still going to be a very good deck.
Yeah.
But you're going to see multiple builds, and it's going to take some time to like find like the stock list.
What are 2 other decks you see changing in one way, shape, or form? Positive, negative, whatever it is.
So let's talk about Hammer Time.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's going to be a lot of Hammer Time changes. Right. But I think there's going to be little adjustments to where I think they're going to be experimenting going into 3 colors potentially now. So a lot of the popular ones, like for a long time it was mono white or white black, and then there was like a few players would play like white green for Gaddock Teeg and Veil, and then with Kamigawa released, blue white is like the hotness because of Reality Chip and Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
Now, I had heard talks on Twitter. I think I want to shout out X Whale. So Will, he was talking about like Nettle Cyst being an option.
Yep.
As a 1 or 2 of, and then maybe Teferi, Time Raveler.
Ooh. Okay, that used to be
interesting.
A thing. That used to be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could see iterations on this. The past like month or so, we've been seeing Blacksmith skill come into the Hammer Time list.
That's the protection spell, I believe. Right?
Yes. It's 1 white for an instant. Target permanent gains hexproof and indestructible. If it's an artifact creature, it gets +2/+2 until turn. So it's like it's a blossoming column in white, but it's more specific. Like the pump is more specific, but the hexproof is less specific. If that makes sense.
Right.
So that's a deck that I could see also doing some changes. But Hammer Time's never been one where there's like a stock list. There's like a stock core, and then you can like swap out a few cards. They're going to be doing some changes, but I still expect this deck to be one of the best decks.
Yeah.
They just lose a little bit of their late game, like recovery.
Yeah. And you know what? That's going to be across the board, right? Like you no longer have that trump card past turn 6 to say, okay, like, now that you've exhausted all your resources, I have Lurrus, go. right? Like it's now
Absolutely.
like you have to win with other forms of value, which we'll talk about in a second. But just give me that one more card. Give me one more deck before I guess add to what you said.
We're not gonna talk about the obvious deck that we're gonna talk about later, right?
right.
So here's one that I'm not as sure on, but my guess. Oh, the meme answer would be burn because they get a 15th sideboard card.
Just the fourth skull crack would be insane.
Yeah. My goodness. So one I'm thinking about is blue-white control, not relying on Chalice of the Void as much anymore.
I like that. I read that somewhere, and that's a good call. I like that. Go into it.
That's not something that like a lot of people have been talking about. Like Azorius Control's been doing well. Wafo Tapa, Control God, won a challenge over the weekend. So like before the Lurrus ban,
nice.
With an Azorius Control deck, like people are playing it and like cards are changing in it. And there's been some iterations on it.
Okay.
I don't think Chalice will still be important because we will see these Ragavan decks still around. They'll be a little less, and I do think the Cascade decks, both Living End and Footfalls, get better with the Lurrus ban. So there might still be Chalices, but maybe they're more just in the sideboard. Maybe Azorius Control gets a few more main board slots. I'm not sure, but that's kind of like my speculative.
Okay. I mean, hey, starting from the top, like I couldn't agree more on the Death Shadow front. Especially what you were saying about the mana base. It's definitely a strained mana base. It is splashing blue in a lot of sense, so that will be a little tough. There really isn't a way where it becomes is it splash black when you're thinking about all the discard spells it's playing. It really has to be red black in a lot of ways. So we'll see how the mana base evolves, and if the mana base just becomes worse, I mean, Field of Ruin gets better, and so does Blood Moon, right? So
if they don't, Yeah, it would have to be just like straight up 3 colors.
Yeah.
I was like, what if they did like Dimir splashing red, but they have too many red spells for that.
Exactly. Yeah. They're like their packages, and that's the thing, right? Like people are, these options are great. Let's play Street Wraith. They can feed their graveyard so well. The Shadow's going to be great. They're going to be able to play, Murktide Regent. Like it might not end up being that because that's a tough mana base, right? Ragavan is a really good threat. Dragon's Channel is a really good threat. Unholy Heat's a really good answer. If they play a Delve spell, I mean, I'm tempted to say it's just Gurmag Angler, but that doesn't really have a lot of evasion, and it really just dies to Unholy Heat. So I mean, why? Yeah. But in that sense, I like what you said about Death Shadow. Hammer, I think, largely agree there. I personally think it still stays one color, although there is a lot of room to explore. People have been trying, as you said, Bant, Orzhov, Azorius. There's been so many things going on in the sideboard.
I think someone at my LGS has been playing Jeskai Hammer.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. And
with like magnetic thefts and whatnot.
There's a lot of there's not much to change because like now all you're doing is you're adding maybe 3 to 4 cards. Like you're adding like a Cauldron Complete, you're adding a Sword of Fire and Ice, like random stuff like that. You just like you have if you're a Hammer player, like you have these cards and you're just gonna throw them in and then like mess around from there, and your deck doesn't really change. You still have your nutty draws, you still have your mid game, you just don't have the Lurrus out.
You're still going to be bonking people and sending them to horny jail.
Exactly. And then, you know what? So, before I touch on Azorius, I'm surprised you didn't touch on Jund.
Yes, because I don't want to wish Liliana of the Veil into existence, because it's still a bad Magic card. It is a very bad Magic card. I'm not saying that because I dislike it, because I do. I have lost so many games to a resolved Liliana of the Veil.
Right.
But just because I've lost to it a bunch does not make it a playable card. All of you Bloodbraid Elf and Lily stands, like, I'm sorry, they're not good. Like, the meta's not going to change that much.
So I think you're right in a lot of ways, and there's one thing to preface here is regardless of how bad and good it is, people never sold their Liliana of the Veils, right? They're just like Scalding Tarns, and it's gonna be there.
They're too tied to their waifus,
right? Exactly. They're gonna force it. It's going to take them a while to realize you can't just throw 4 Lilianas in there and hope your deck is good. There's a lot of good cards in Jund right now, and I think your slot's going to be pretty damn limited.
So here's the thing. It's like, so I theorize that the best decks in the format are going to be Hammer, 4-color, like Rhino/Living End, and then Titan. Or did I say Titan twice?
No, Titan.
Murktide.
No, you didn't say
okay.
Titan.
Okay, so like, all right, Amulet Titan, it always beats Jund. Like that's just like
right,
time memorial.
Yeah, big mana, always,
I think Hammer generally has like a decent Jund matchup. Now, if you're playing Jund and you're playing like Hidetsugu Consumes All, which is like the latest flavor card, which I am not surprised I predicted that.
Yeah, hey, now that Lurrus is gone, come on.
That's a cool card. Maybe there's some play there. I think Murktide Regent is like, I'm not sure about that one. I think 4-color, maybe there's some play to it. I think the Cascade decks just shit on you. So like, even if you're like, okay, I'm a Lily stan, I'm a BBE stan, I'm gonna play Boomer John with like maybe some Ragavans and some other like new cards. I still think you're gonna have a rough time. Like you might still pull off some stuff, but like I still think Zoomer Jund with Saga, Ragavan, etc. I still think that's gonna be the better choice if you want to play Jund.
You mentioned something quick in there. What's the matchup like for 4-color versus like Cascade?
Okay,
what's that matchup
like? 4-color versus Cascade.
Yeah, like what's that like?
Is it? Oh, okay. No, I was saying like Cascade into Jund and 4-color into Jund.
Oh, sorry. I thought you like I didn't actually know that. I thought you were gonna say that like Cascade actually beat up on 4-color. I didn't know that, but I was okay.
No. I was saying both like Footfalls and Living End. I think have positive Jund.
Okay, that's what you're
matchups.
Saying. Not
and then 4-color. It's like 4-color probably has enough value where they just beat Jund, but like I honestly, discard spells are pretty good into 4-color.
Do. If you put Liliana I don't even think this is a bad take. If you put Liliana the Veil in your deck, you are decreasing your win rate against 4-color.
So here's my thing with Lily versus 4-color. I think it's decent into a lot of their threats. The only threat you care about, in terms of just like a Lily in isolation, is Fury, because Fury can deal 4 damage to it.
Right.
But like Solitude, only hits creatures. If they just like slam an Omnath and pass, you can Lily minus. Like you might have some game versus like the Omnath 4-color piles, maybe.
Yeah, I guess my concept is that like the traditional Jund decks, right? Like if you're playing Liliana, like you're playing a certain type of a style, right? Like you're not playing a mid-range aggro plan, you're playing a mid-range tempo plan, slow game. Like you're trying to 1-for-1. The problem is that deck has so much card draw that like they're never behind, right? And I think that's where Jund is going to struggle. Like they're you're never going to get them. The minute they resolve like I don't know, like the prismatic ending their first threat, and then like you resolve a Renin 6, like how do you win?
I think it's the angle of like you have to do like turn 1 discard, turn 2 Tarmogoyf, turn 3 Lily.
Yeah.
And then you can like get something going.
Hopefully.
Assuming so it's like turn 1 discard a Solitude. Then their Ragavan can't do anything into your Tarmogoyf. Your Lily can either take care of their isolated threats or just keep discarding. While your Goyf beats in. Like that seems viable into 4-color. Just depending on the 4-color's draw. So like I don't think it's like an unwinnable matchup. It's probably like a 60-40 in 4-color's favor, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, but my point was like on average the like top 5 or 6 decks that I'm expecting, Jund doesn't seem like aggregated over those matchups. Jund doesn't seem like super great. And then like I didn't even mention Death Shadow, because like that's still gonna be a deck.
What do you like? Do you have a take on like how you think they're gonna scale, or do you just think like those 5 decks are gonna coexist in some type of percentage?
Yeah, I think they're going to coexist, and there's still going to be other decks. I mentioned too, we've had the conversation about like these like mini packages that are scattered over, and they give like this false sense of diversity. Like we're still going to have that in Modern.
Yeah.
Lurrus doesn't do away with that, but it just takes away some of the um, late game resiliency from some of the aggro decks
Right.
that um, so some of the slower decks that were potentially being gate kept a little bit are going to raise their percentage points.
Yeah. I think at least like I agree with the numbers. I think the top decks I think the top 5 decks to me are probably going to be 4 color shadow 4 color shadow amulet. Sorry, I mean 4 color shadow amulet hammer and
And then there's like, and
I'm probably
then you're
still gonna have
thinking,
to give fifth slot to Murktide. I think the combo decks
right.
like they're gonna be
You don't
like a top deck.
you don't think like Living End or Crashing
I
Footfalls?
think it'll be like close to 1 or like 1.5. I don't
Yeah.
think it's top 5. I think it's like tops 10.
I'm I could see like Shadow being in that top five like once they kind of
Yeah.
figure things out. And I don't know how, and that could just be like next week or 2 weeks from now. Like they've just like already cracked it, and then
Yeah.
everything's fine. Like that could definitely be the case.
Yeah, like
But
footfalls
I'm
is like footfalls is like 6th, 7th. It's not like just because it's not top 5 doesn't
yeah.
mean it's not close. Like to me it's like
Now,
6th,
yeah,
7th. Like it's
right.
there, but it's not I think Amulet's a big winner here. Death Shadow has a lot of cool options now. Hammer's still just as good as you're saying.
Yep,
Blink gets a lot of points, and I mean
yep.
like yo, Murktide just nothing
I've been
changed. Nothing
and weirdly
changed.
enough, I've been seeing a lot of Tron lately.
Hey, if Tron ever needed a reason to come back, like, right? Like, if Tron ever needed a reason to
Yeah.
be anywhere, right? Especially in this open meta where you talk about, like, something like Burn is probably going to take over the leagues for a little bit while people are testing and a little bit uncertain. Tron kind of does the same thing, right? Like, if you're just doing random stuff and you're not trying to stop Tron, Tron will stop you, like, very quickly. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just all over the leagues recently.
Yeah,
But like especially kind of at least for the next week or so before Tron figures out where it wants to be.
for
But I
sure.
think I think that's our general feelings on like the meta itself. Like, do you have any closing comments? Like, I have some general things to
No,
say in terms of like the companions in general. But do you like I we can leave that for a final thought, I guess, like in terms of
yeah,
how
no, I'm
modern
good.
needs to change. But I want to bring up a quick thing that I was thinking about the other day with the companions. Now that Lurrus is gone, right? Like, well, level with me here. I think the companion change, the 3 mana change, how you used to when companions were out. Some of our astute listeners actually may not have remembered this. I've come across people like this, where when companions originally came out, you could actually just cast them for their mana cost and put them out on the
Yeah.
battlefield. It was
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
insane, right? And in a lot of ways, this change where you pay 3 mana and put it in your hand was done for Lurrus, right? Like, it
Correct.
wasn't done for Gyruda. Gyruda was actually a pretty cool deck. It wasn't
Uh,
busting anything, right?
I miss my
Yeah.
Garuda combo.
Like, that was actually a pretty cool deck. Like, that wasn't doing anything busted. It was just kind of cool, right? And a lot of people loved it. But it was literally just because of Lurrus. So if you think about it, now that Lurrus is gone, if you went back to the old rules, it would actually be a net nerf for the other top companions right now, being Kahira and Yorion. It would actually be a net nerf, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because how many times do you
and
actually...
I would be down for that just so I can play Garuda again.
Exactly, right? Like, okay, so what do I mean by this, listeners? Like, so how many times do you actually see Yorion get cast anymore?
Lutri
Like,
decks would get better as well.
I mean, yeah, exactly, right? Because you can actually just cast Lutri and use its ability at instant speed. Kahira gets put into their hand to pitch to subtlety rarely, but mostly Solitude.
Yep,
Yorion
same with
gets
Yorion.
Yorion gets thrown in there to pitch to elementals as well. Like,
Yeah.
these
Yeah,
cards. Yeah.
there's that like Rick and Morty meme, the like the butter bot. You know what I'm talking about? It's like what is my purpose? It's like Yorion and Kira, what is my purpose? You get pitched to Solitude. Oh my god. It's like the same thing with Stoneforge Mystic. What's your purpose? You fetch Colossal Hammer.
That's
oh my god.
Hey.
Yeah, it's
shout out
like
to Shadow Spear for fighting the good fight, but I think like I was thinking about this and I thought it was kind of funny that yes, if you just brought back the old rules, it would actually be a net positive for the modern format because you bring back Garuda as a deck, so a new deck, and then you also nerf Yorion and Kahira, which is kind of funny because they don't have that card to pitch, right? So I don't know. That's my take. Maybe it's not actually like a good take, but whatever.
No, I would totally be down with that.
But we're a modern podcast focused on the modern player and more importantly, the modern Miller. I think that's what our damn tagline is. So Jack, talk to me.
I don't know. You made it, so I would hope you know it.
I'm a genius. That's what I think anyway. I think my wife says that as well, but the sample size is small. But what is the state of modern Mill? Jack, go for it.
It's hard to say, but I think Mill takes the hardest hit with
Right.
Lurrus being banned, and the reason for that is not necessarily Lurrus being out of our decks.
But what if my Manic Scribe goes into my graveyard? What do I do?
Then you're an OG who can't let go of fun cards.
Yeah.
The biggest problem is Lurrus being banned incentivizes people to branch out and play their 3 and 4 CMC permanents again, which makes Tasha's Hideous Laughter potentially much worse.
Yeah.
And so it takes away some of our good matchups where like Hammer I would consider was one of our better matchups. That becomes harder if they're playing, the Cauldron Completes, the Batter Skulls, the Sword, the Fire and Ices, etc. While the shadows and the hammers, they're still going to exist. But it's like Zoomer Jund was a fine matchup before. Like, I mean, it was, if they triple discard you, like the bane of my existence, sure, like you're not going to win that. But like on like an average game, if they just discard you once or whatever, you could still just top deck Atasha's and then you're back in the game.
Yeah.
All of these Lillian BB stands that we referenced earlier, if they come back, well, there's another bad matchup in the meta.
Yeah.
Death Shadow gonna play Gurmag or Murktide again. That makes Tasha's a lot worse.
Hey, Gurmag back in the format. There goes Drown in the Lock. Like, there's so many problems.
Yep,
right?
makes Drown worse as well. Yep. So Mill is always so yes, a net negative. I guess the only consolation is Amulet and Tron are going to be and Control are going to be on the rise. So that's like a consolation prize, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Mill is always bad when there's a meta shift. Like initially, it functions a lot like Control in that regard. Of you don't know what exactly is going to shake out, so it's hard for you to tune and prepare your lists for that. Whereas like a deck like Burn, you can just run it anytime, anywhere, and it's going to do Burn things.
Right.
So it's challenging. Mill is in kind of a nebulous spot once again, but this happens anytime there's big bans.
Yeah, and I think I largely agree here. Like, there's the average CMC of the deck is, average CMC of the metagame is going to rise. Consolation being that, of course, as you mentioned, Amulet, Tron Control, heck, even if Burn gets up, like we still have Tasha's for that matchup. There's still going to be decks that we can still attack, but if decks like Hammer are going to be putting Cauldron Completes into their deck, and decks like Death Shadow are going to put Street Rates back into their deck, then you're gonna start to lose some matches there.
Yes.
So in terms of the specifics, right?
Yep.
How bad? I don't know how specific you want to get into this, so just feel free to be as general as you want. But how bad do you think Tasha's Hideous Laughter is now? Are we sideboarding this card? Are we ripping them apart? Are we putting our foils as paperweights? Like, what are we doing here?
So that's really tough to answer because we don't know what the shakeup's going to be.
Right.
I will say another thing that makes it worse for Tosh's is when you went into a game, your opponent declares Lurrus. It made it a lot easier for you to kind of posture like your opening hands, because if you see Lurrus and then your hand is like, maybe it doesn't have some crabs or early interaction, but you have like two Tashes in there. You're like, okay, I'm going to keep this because unless they just double discard me, like I'm just going to get in a bunch of value out of this.
Yeah, and that
so
is
now it's
like that's one of the most important things that you probably could have like brought up. That is literally like we literally lose half the information available to us in this format. Like that's not a joke, right? Like what you brought up is actually really, really important, right? Like even though you hated the cyclical nature of seeing Lurrus over and over again, the fact that Mill played, sorry.
I didn't personally.
Okay, well, like the general sentiment is like, oh,
Yeah.
Lurrus again, right? Like the information that revealing Lurrus gave us as a mill deck, just having Tasha's in our opening hand, having that information available to us before we decided mulligans is really important, right? Like you have to be able to play to these extreme pieces of information, right? We are a deck that's always playing from behind, naturally card disadvantage. So I'm really happy you brought that up because that's something no one's going to talk about. And no one in the mill Discord has brought up at all. And I'm happy you brought that up. Yeah.
So it's really tough to say where Tasha's is supposed to go. If we see a continuation of Hammer, maybe Zoomerjun still exists. Death Shadow is like, not playing as many. Maybe they're playing like 2 Murktides. Maybe it's like, oh, you still play some Tashas. Maybe you put some to the side. Maybe you just shave down to 3 or whatever. And I think it's even like fine into Amulet because of their high land count.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like not that bad. But if we're going to get to a place where it's just like 4 color, crashing footfalls, living end, all this kind of stuff is just like taking more and more of the metagame up. Tasha's is going to start going further and further down. Maybe it's a sideboard only card.
Right.
I don't think it's going to get to the point where we just cut it all together.
Right.
I don't think it's that bad.
No, yeah, but the card still has a lot of value in it. It really does.
It's still our trump card to a lot of the aggro decks.
Yeah. How do you feel about Mesmeric Orb now?
So yeah, it's kind of this interesting thing. Is like Tasha's is generally, it's like you want Tasha's. It's like a Tasha matchup or an Orb matchup in most cases. Right. I would argue that there's a few where you want both or neither. Yeah. But a lot of times it's like it's almost like opposite ends of the spectrum. In theory, Mesmeric Orb's value is going to go up. However, with more and more disenchant effects, especially Beseiju, and other things. Yeah, and Force of Vigors. There's a lot of disenchants in white right now being played. Like that decreases Orb's value, so it's really tough to say. Where things are going to go from here and how we should be building our decks. I have a couple of ideas of maybe where we should go from here.
Mm-hmm. Let's use that as a transition. Actually, I think there's one more small topic I want to talk about before we talk about like lists, like general ideas. Obviously, with Lurrus gone, we have 3+ CMC permanents available to us.
Yes.
So how many Ugin should we be playing in our mill decks? I mean, more seriously, the 3 big permanents that I wanted to touch on are going to be Ensnaring Bridge, Fraying Sanity, and Ashiok Dream Render. Nightmare Weaver if you wanted to get some fun in there, but yeah.
I'm surprised that those are the 3 that you want to talk about.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Those are my 3. What are your permanents?
Okay, so I'm going to go on your list, and then I'm going to make a suggestion of my own.
Sure.
Fraying Sandy is an unplayable Magic card.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Thank God.
I am sorry. I'm sorry if you're listening to this, Alex, Delthar. No,
Delta has passed this too. Delta has passed this too. No. We can. Okay. You know what? I gotta give Alex. Okay, Alex gets a pass because man's playing Flesh and Blood now. Delta also gets a pass because you know what?
Okay,
he's worked hard for it.
But I remember that those two were like the big fraying sanity stands. That is a unplayable magic card.
Yeah.
Okay, Ensnaring Bridge is basically unplayable. I'm sorry, Mill Discord. Like,
Team Bridge died when Beseiju was printed. Bridge died.
There was already a bunch of disenchant effects. Like, there's so much Force of Vigor and Wear and Tear around. Like, Bridge is exclusively reserved for Mono Red Prison and Lantern.
Yeah, decks that can punish your opponent in other angles, right?
Yes. Yes, they can play the card. It is not a good card, especially when a lot of our stuff is becoming instant speed. Like, no. Do not play this card.
Yeah. It's like I think like it's been bad for a while. Like ever since like that era of MH2. Ever since MH2 happened, the card's just been bad, right? Like just on the.
Well, no, I think the card was bad long before that.
Well, so that in my mind was a solidification. Like if you still thought the card was good after that, like I think you were just holding on to like a rope that didn't exist.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of and I'm sorry to call all these people out because we are the mods and we do love our
opinions are our own. We don't represent you. You are a free person.
I thought it was very interesting. Like there's sort of this like human phenomenon where when something drastic changes, like some sort of calamity happens, or whatever or they made a change and it didn't work and it backfired horribly. Humans as a group, as a society, as an individual, have the tendency to revert back to ways and mindsets that they last remember things working.
I'm so happy that you use this to explain Ensnaring Bridge. This is so fucking deep.
So with that, it's like before Lurrus existed, and it took a while for like the mill players to adapt to Lurrus. Like we were playing the Ensnaring Bridges, the Ashiok Dream Renders a lot in our sideboards and our main boards. And so when Lurrus was banned, the day it was banned, within 30 minutes, an hour of it being posted in the mill Discord, it's just like, oh, so are we back to Bridge and Ashiok? Are we back to Bridge and Ashiok? Are we back to Bridge and Ashiok?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the exact phenomenon I'm talking about. It's just like, okay, so the last iteration of mill that was good, we played a lot of these. So is that just like where we're going now? It's like, no, the landscape has changed so much since those times.
100%.
Like
100%.
So I don't think Bridge is playable. I don't think you should be playing it.
Yeah. Unless you're playing like Karn the Great Creator. That's it, right? Like you're
but then are you playing mill? Like,
yo, have you seen Keening Stone? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Yo, little fun card for all you listeners to look up. Go for it.
So, Ashiok Dream Render, I could see arguments for it. That's the one suggestion that I'm like, okay, maybe that might have something to do. Right. I do think it's a little bit worse now. There's not as many graveyard decks. Like, sure, has some value against people playing like Murktide Regent, and Living End, obviously. But it's like Dredge isn't really rolling around like it was when we were playing Ashiok before. Like, I think it's like fine. I'm not sure if I'm going to be playing it, but I think it's like fine. I'm not going to fault people for playing it.
What's your take on a list that could exist right now?
Well, so I was gonna the 3+ CMC permanent that I think people should.
Oh, right. Sorry, yeah, you didn't bring that up. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So the one that I think people should be talking about is the Teferi Time Raveler.
Ah, okay. Fair point. I did not bring that up. You're right. Yeah.
I think this card is obviously like I hate playing against it, but like playing with it feels unfair. Like not only just my control opponents can't interact with my spells when I cast them. Like beyond that.
Oh, Tawara.
And like, oh well, okay. Sure. But I'm talking about like if Teferi's on the board and I cast the Tasha's, they have if they want to do like pay 4 mana, discard Otawara, and then they also still have mana to counter my Tasha's, fair play.
Sure. But that's not a lot of resources.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're playing against control. You probably have a Mesmeric Orb. It go burn.
Right.
So, but beyond that, and like obviously the drawing a card and bouncing something, that can be relevant. What I think is actually the two biggest strengths of playing Teferi Time Reveler in Mill specifically. One, the +1, being able to cast Tasha's Fractured Sanity Prismatic Ending at instant speed, I think is massive.
Yep, that's pretty big.
That is I think that is huge. The other thing is the static keeping Footfalls and Living End in check.
Exactly.
Because those are like, the more I'm playing, the more I'm actually finding those decks to be kind of a problem.
Yeah.
At times. So like keeping them in check. It also the Evoke Elementals. Now they have to like sorcery speed their endurance. It's a lot easier to play around that sort of graveyard hate. I think this is a sleeper that I've been trying it. I haven't had a ton of time on it, but it's something that I've been really focusing is like, I think this is an avenue that Mill might have to go in.
I wanted to expand on some of the things you're gonna you were just mentioning there, actually, just to help them out a little bit more, because there will be people that kind of try and have their own arguments against it. So touching on one of the points you just said against the Cascade matchups, okay, sure. So Teferi is a good answer for them. A lot of people say, okay, what happened to the surgical plan? Okay, look, folks, I'm going to be honest here. If you don't believe this matchup is a problem and you're playing surgical, you haven't played enough games. Understand that matchups like this will do things like, the Rhinos matchup will just suspend Rhinos on turn 1. What do you do with your surgical then? Or they will play, the Living End matchup will play 3 copies of Living End, decreasing your chances drastically of finding it early. And they can then go off at instant speed with Living End. Right, so you got to have answers.
Well, both can go off at instant speed.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just bringing it up specifically for Living End because Crashing Footfalls at least has the plus side of that along with it. So there's so many things going on with the deck. If you truly believe the matchup isn't problematic, I don't think you've played enough games. I'm sorry to say that, but again, as someone who's played so many goddamn games against these decks, it is very hard, a consistent amount of time, to actually have good disruption. It's better to just have a static effect sometimes. So Teferi gets a big plus there. And then the second thing you were just touching on with the what was the second matchup you just said? You mentioned the Cascade decks, and then you were mentioning what deck?
Of like 4-color, like Evoke Elementals with and Endurance is played in Yawgmoth, Titan, all sorts of stuff.
Right. So
like any of those, and that also doubles up in the Footfalls and the Living End matchup. It's just like the Evoke Elementals casting it on our turn, as a result of like a mill or whatever. So it's like I guess I'll give you an example of like, if you're against Amuletine, like, yes, a very good matchup. However, they play an Emrakul in the sideboard, so you mill. They flip over an Emrakul. Okay, you crack your Soul Guide Lantern to just exile and deal with it. Oh wait, they have an Endurance and a green card, or Endurance and 3 mana.
I mean, of course, they're definitely going to have a green card. Yeah.
Right. So they do that in response. Well, if you have Teferi on board, they can no longer do that. Yeah. Now that's a very niche example, but like, while the very specifics of it is niche, I think it has a wider application to multiple of the decks that are going to see a lot of play.
Well, I mean, I think that's like the thing to hammer home, folks. Like, Teferi Time Raveler isn't a win condition. It doesn't say win the game. It doesn't do damage. It draws you cards. Heck, if you think about it in a vacuum sense, it's actually bad for you because, okay, it's just drawing you more cards. It's not actually inherently doing anything for you. The whole point of Teferi Time Raveler is to exploit niches, and then the decks that use Teferi Time Raveler exploit niches to the max. right? They will play Teferi Time Raveler and then go off with Cascade. They will play Teferi Time Raveler so that their spells can't be countered. Teferi Time Raveler is just to exploit niches, and
it's a floodgate that also gives you utility by making your sorceries instant speed.
Yeah. And I guess that's probably leading to the idea that you're kind of leaning on Azorius over Dimir. Are you trying Esper? Like, what are you thinking?
So I did have a paper 1K a couple of weekends ago, and I top 8'd, but I played blue-white, like straight up blue-white, with Lurrus, because obviously the ban didn't happen then. And I knew my local meta had a lot of Shadow, had a lot of Burn, those sorts of decks. So that's why I made the choice, because I've been in the Dimir trenches and just like it was just not working out for me. So I made the switch literally the night before. I hadn't had a chance to test the list. I just was like, all right, pull up an old Azorius list that I had from a while ago. Let's make some sideboard changes. Let's make a few main board changes. Let's go. And it performed really well. Decent sideboard, and I've talked about how much I dislike ley lines, but like with that and March of Otherworldly Light, like being able to pitch excess ley lines, to aid in your removal, that I was like, okay, now there's like that is something there. And then like
100%, people always talk about collective brutality to get rid of extra ley line of the voids. Why can't we do that with this, right?
And then as you saw in one of your streams and videos, and I'm sure Chef will have a link to that, Sanctify on Vec can be a pretty powerful card.
Well, on a complete side note, like those videos are like almost useless now. Like I have it on my stream, but like I was gonna post them on, and then they're like, "Oh, Lurrus is banned." I'm like, "Okay, well these videos literally will get no views." So now I'm mad.
Okay, well there was a stream. Chef played a list that was very similar to the list I top 8'd with in my 1K.
Yeah.
And his first two matches were Burn and Prowess. And how did Sanctifier on Vec do in those matches?
I only won those games because of that card. Only. There was no other card that won me that game. No other card across my 75 won me those games other than Sanctifier on Vec. I understand the fact that I had to mill them or whatever. Like, okay, fine. I understand my hyperbole. But I only had the turns. Was
alive and locked.
Yeah, the turns and the time and the resources to create a win condition because of Sanctifier on Vec. Sanctifier on Vec literally was on the battlefield one game and stared down a 3-board presence alongside Ruin Crab because they couldn't afford to swing in with anything. If they swung in with anything, I would kill their best threat or at least trade even and not even lose. Like there was a board where I had Ruin Crab, Sanctifier on Vec, they had Goblin Guide, Monastery, Swift Spear, and Eidolon of the Great Revel. They couldn't swing in with any one of those. Swinging in with Swift Spear is a complete waste of time. Swinging in with just to get over. Swinging in with 2 cards is a complete waste of time because I can double block. And then swinging in with 3 cards, 3 of those means I kill Eidolon, only take 2 damage, and then they're on even next game. Sanctifier on Vec literally shut them down.
Yeah,
literally shut them down.
And now to state with meta changes, maybe they aren't necessary. I just know that my meta, there's always a ton of black decks and red decks, like your Thoughtseizes, your Lightning Bolts, whatever. There's always a ton of it. So, I made that meta call, and it paid off. Sanctifier on Vec is just...
Hey, don't get me wrong here. A meta literally just shook up. You know what decks are going to be everywhere? Burn and Prowess. If you're playing Azorius, you should... I think... Personally, I think the number is good at 2. I don't know if I'd play 3. I think it's 3 to 4 ley line and then 2 Sanctifier. Yeah, the 1 is absolutely useless. Don't play 1. You need to have enough to draw it. So 2 is perfect. 3 means that it's a primary part of your plan and should help you a lot. But the fact that it doesn't gain life is the problem. If it did, you'd be playing 8 copies. But I think 2 is the good number.
It's but you can't as much... maybe Ariok Champion is technically better, but Sanctifier on Vec's $1 or $2, and Ariok Champion's 20 or whatever.
Oh,
Like
I miss Auriok Champion as a humans player. I miss that card.
Yeah. So anyways, we got into a big tangent.
No, but hey, last thing on Sanctifier. Sanctifier has a rest in peace ability that's actually really relevant that may not be so anymore, to be fair, and it's also a 2/2 versus
it makes
being a 1/1.
It makes it a lot harder for the Death Shadow players to play Gurmag or Murktide.
Yeah.
So like it does that. I don't play it as much for that effect. That's just kind of like a incidental. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
It's mostly just like pro red, pro black, have fun.
Yeah.
So anyways, so I was playing Azorius, and getting back to where the meta is going, because I think that Teferi is like something that more people should be testing in Mill and trying out. I do think Azorius is the way to go. Now the caveat is I was playing Rest in Peace. I was playing Zero Surgical. I do think Surgical gets better with the Lurrus ban.
Yeah.
And, I don't think we have to have like a huge discussion of that, but like a lot of the combo decks, a lot of the big mana decks have gotten better. So I think Surgical is going to start making a comeback. We were kind of shying away from it because the meta was like super heavy aggro and stuff that really didn't care about Surgical.
Yeah.
So I think personally, what is like blue-white with 3 to 4 Surgical in the sideboard instead of Rest in Peace.
Yeah.
Maybe you play like instead of 2 Prismatic Vistas and one of your Seek Room Coasts, maybe you play like 2 Polluted Delta and a Watery Grave, just so like you don't always have to pay the 2 life.
Yeah, and Prismatic
maybe
becomes slightly better too, right?
Yes, and right, that's another thing. Maybe you do go Esper. We did get the Triomes confirmed.
Yeah.
In the New Capenna, even though they're not called Triomes, I'm probably still going to call them Triomes. Otherwise, we call them Tricycle Lands, which actually isn't a terrible name.
Yeah.
So we are getting the Esper one along with Grixis and Bant would be the only other 2 relevant. Like we're not going to use Junder Naya.
Yeah.
But so maybe there's that. I did brew up kind of like an Esper Yorian kind of build because that's something I've been working on. I don't know. Drown seems like it's going to be losing value. Like continuously, so maybe that's not the best, but maybe Kaya's Guile starts seeing a little bit more play. I don't think tribal decks are going to come back, so I don't think Crypt Incursion is that necessary. Yeah. So I definitely think personally, I know I'm going to be going with blue-white with Surgicals in the sideboard. I think having some Lanterns in the main instead of Surgicals is like a lot safer. And gonna be more consistent on average. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel on lists.
I think I agree largely with blue white. I think personally, I think I'm still gonna be going Dimir with Surgical's main, but I'm also gonna miss Leyline of Sanctity. I think that's my big hesitancy right now. I kind of do want Leyline of Sanctity, and I kind of do want like Path to Exile. I think that's my big thing right now. Like, like if creatures are going to get bigger, right, yes, and different types of threats, like Cauldron Complete's going to be out, guess what, folks? I'm going to be putting up a short, the short will be up by the time that this podcast
Prismatic Vista and March both deal with Cauldron.
I was just going to say, so, March of the Otherworldly Light is an instant speed way to deal with, the Cauldron token. So, like, if stuff like this is going to be out, like, White has really succinct answers. The only reason I would go Dimir is just the ability to play Crypt Incursion and Surgical Extraction, right? So
I just don't think Crypt Incursion is that effective.
Yeah, so Crypt loses points for sure. It's not a great argument, but it's really like one of the primary arguments to play over like Azorius. But it doesn't have that. It's not that great of an argument right now. I'm just relying on the fact that I personally think Amulet is going to be big. I think Amulet is a big winner here. I think Tron comes back in a little way, and I'm still going to rely on it for the Hammer matchup. So I'm still going to go with Dimir, but I think Azorius probably, I think by numbers, should just be better.
Yeah, and I think like and even like so if Amulet does make a big comeback, which I think it does.
Yeah.
You should be able to beat it game one without surgicals.
Yeah.
I think you have enough there where you can do it. And then you just bring in your surgicals for games 2 and/or 3.
Yeah.
And I think it's still fine.
Yeah.
Tron, I think, is the one that like blue white is going to struggle a bit more against if
Yeah.
that makes a comeback.
Yeah.
Because I think Dimir is like way better at dealing with green Tron.
What's Death Shadow's matchup versus Tron? I mean, now that they're not playing the ferocious counter spell, like it has to be worse,
Shadow
right?
Shadow has a pretty good Tron matchup.
That's a good Tron matchup. Okay, all right. Okay,
I would say. Well, it's like because they have like Alpine Moons, you have discard spells. Like you're able to disrupt it long enough where you probably can kill them.
Right.
But like, I mean, if Tron does its turn 3 thing, then yeah, Shadow can't really do much.
Okay.
Like, so I think it's a little bit worse now. So like, I don't know. I'm really out on like where Tron fits into things because I do think it's like better, but I'm not sure where exactly.
Right.
Um.
Okay. Yeah. So generally, how we're feeling right now, Azorius definitely feels like the way to go here, especially because the options you get, Leyline of Sanctity no longer has any downside to play in terms of the Lurrus restriction, and we have cards like March of the Otherworldly Light to even pitch extra copies to do like a kind of Path to Exile, but slightly better impression sometimes. So the options are there, and the mana base is just as easy as Dimir if you're thinking about Blood Moon issues, and you just get access to a lot of powerful Magic cards in general, right? In terms of just
you even have better answers at dealing with Blood Moon. You have Teferi. You can play some amount of disenchants. If you didn't want to splash the black for Surgical, like you can still play Surgical and just pay 2 life. Until the Triomes come out, you can very easily play a Rogrin Triome.
Yeah.
So you have like a little white splash or a little red splash, and there you go. You can play some Wear and Tears in your sideboard.
Yeah. Literally just
you have options.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean that's our general thoughts about like Mill. And I think a lot of people are already having similar discussions. I'm happy we touched on some big points though. What are your final thoughts? I guess like rounding off our big topic on the pod here. What are your final thoughts on Modern? Like, is this a good step forward? Is this a step backwards? What still needs to change? Things like that.
I think things are going to stay relatively the same. Like obviously there's going to be some changes, and a lot of people have been overjoyed that Lurrus is banned. I'm waiting. I'm expecting in 2 months or so, people are going to really start complaining about Yorion, and people are going to really start complaining much more about these MH2 cards that are really powerful.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. The veil
my
is going to lift from people's eyes.
Popcorn is popped. I am ready to just watch it because it's what I've been saying the past 6 months.
Yeah, like I can't wait for shout out to Dre. You're gonna be this far in the episode. You and your popcorn.
I was thinking the exact same thing because Dre always uses those gifs.
Yeah. And he has one. He has one. And like the other day, he thought I was being serious. I was like, "Yo, Dre, I'm gonna ban you for this." He thought he was being serious. Like, I'll use another one. Man takes a screenshot of like 15 others he has already. I was like, "Yo, stop this nonsense." So I'm all with you. I can't wait till all these. All these grinders are going to be enjoying themselves. Oh, Modern's great. If you're winning, you're great. Like, oh, that's fine, right? Like I remember, known content creator. I won't say who said it. They're like, oh, if you're winning, it's it's not the losers. Sorry, it's not the winners that are moving over to Pioneer. I'm like, okay, like that's not.
Oh yeah, okay. I know the tweet you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, whatever. Well, like, what does that even mean? Like, Modern's supposed to be this format where, you can play any deck you want, but you can't do that right now. I'm sorry. Like, Death Shadow is literally 13% of the meta. Obviously, that's going to change, but that still doesn't mean that Murktide is still a thing, Ragavan, DRC. If you're not doing certain things in this meta, and let me be honest with you folks, let me give you a stark reality check. The amount of good things you can be doing drastically shrunk with Lurrus being gone. Okay, if you could just play Lurrus and call that your good thing, the amount of things you can be doing that are good for you has drastically shrunk, which means your options for being in line with the meta have also drastically shrunk. And a lot of times you're just going to be playing from behind, just as an FYI. If you're not playing MH2 block constructed, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, but hey, 2 months. I'm with you on that popcorn. Hope it's a large bag.
It's like 2 or 3 months. Yeah, it's right in that good streak.
Hope it's a large bag and you like some butter, because we're gonna be sitting here for a bit. But so that's gonna be modern. And I think that's gonna round out our discussion here, unless you have any final points.
I encourage our fellow millers to be open-minded in these times. Experiment with some stuff. Find what works for the meta that you're going to be playing in, whether it's just your Modern Mondays, your FNMs, maybe it's a 1K, a 2K, a 3K. Maybe you're going to SCG cons or energies or face-to-faces and are going to see like all of the spikes. Really take your time to observe how the meta shapes up and adjust accordingly. Not just your card choices, but your color choices.
100%. Please just play games. Just play games. I'm like, me, Blitz, Tibble, like whoever it is, like we can't just give you. We don't have the exact answer for you. We don't. Like, we have the general answer for you. There's so many times where people will PM me and be like, yo, this is my meta, this is my deck, what do I need to do? I'm like, okay, this is such a deep question. Like, this is, you need to play games. Exactly.
I get a lot of those as well, and I'm just like, I don't know how to answer this nicely.
You know what? Whatever. Like, there's a slow work day. Fine, I'll do this as a little mini project. But you need to play games. Exactly as Jack just said. You need to play games on your own. The hard work is not going to be done for you. And by the time there is enough hard work done for you, literally new Capenna's out and like Brother War's out. You know, like it's a whole new world.
Okay, whoa! You skipped over Dominaria.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot the set in there. I just went to that one. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, play the games. Couldn't agree more. Yep. Let's do a quick aside before we go in some post pod talk. Quick, maybe a minute or so. New Capenna spoilers already came out. Sure. How are you feeling about the Triomes? The Ascendencies cycle finishing.
I don't care about Ascendencies. I don't play, like, the only one that's relevant is the Jeskai Ascendancy sees play, right. And like it was seeing play in Pioneer, and whatever, but like it's whatever. I do like that whole like Cubist Golden Age art for the Broker's Ascendancy. Yep. That looks really cool. Yep. But I don't care about them. They're generally mostly for Commander players. Like, they do show up in Pioneer and Standard, cool. Yeah. But they're not going to really. I don't think whatever.
My small gripe with them is that, like, so the Triumph. This is like literally just a logistical thing, but like the Triomes are called Triomes, right? But these lands, people are going to refer to them as the Triomes, but there's no actual unifying name to them. They all have a very unique name.
It's like how they did the in Strixhaven they called them the Snarls, but the other part of the cycle is in like what, Shadows over Innistrad, or so is it
yeah.
Or no, it's is it Shadows over Innistrad that's the set?
It was an Innistrad set. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, because it's the Choked Estuary, like that right. It's not like the Cinder.
Yeah.
Or not. Oh my god, I'm mixing up two cycles of cards.
No. It's just
one of them. One of them is like Port Town, and then the other one is like Prairie something.
Yeah, like the condition to have them be untapped is like slightly different. Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember which one the Snarls match up to. But it's like, it feels weird when the cycles like either like don't have generic names or they all don't have the same name. Like, it's like Shocklands all have very generic names, so they can be reprinted multiple times with different arts, different themes, etc. The Triomes, even the Triomes themselves, like, it's going to be hard to necessarily like reprint them.
That's actually a massive gripe of mine, but yeah. I don't want to go into the whole.
And it's harder in the new Capenna ones, like, because they're very specific, because they're tied to specific like legendary creatures that we're expecting to see in the set.
Yeah.
Now the artwork is like pretty good. If you peep somewhere down in my Twitter, I did like a a ranking of what I of each of the because each of these triomes are going to have 3 different artworks.
Yep.
And so I like ranked each one. And generally for me, the Grixis, the Bant, and the Naya ones are the better ones. I'm not as big a fan of the Esper or Jund ones, personally.
I actually want to give a quick shout out to some like lore stuff as well. Like Bant is actually going to get demons for the first time, to my knowledge. I don't
demon lawyers, which seems redundant.
Like I just think like it's cool that like because of this set they have to like introduce a whole new subtype to a color pie. It's pretty cool. I'm kind of excited to see.
I think there's going to be a little bit of color pie like bending or breaking, but I'm generally like mostly okay with that.
Yeah. So
it should be interesting. We're gonna get a lot more spoilers like later this month and in April.
Yeah.
It should be interesting.
I'm happy we got that buzz. But I mean, hey, we're officially in post pod talk. Modern is changed, and Mill's going to be just starter. Fine. Just believe. Just believe. So what are some things you're looking forward to in the next couple of weeks?
I have a 3K this weekend that I'm freaking out about because of the meta changes, and I'm not going to know what's going on, so I'm not sure if I'm going to go like fuck it, play Mill, play my like prospective list and see how it goes. Maybe I play something else. Testing some other decks have not gone super great past couple days.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. Like I've said, the weekend after I've got that Innistrad draft that I'm pretty excited for.
Right.
And then I have a paper 1K at my store the weekend after that. So I'm going to be playing a lot of Magic on the weekends. I've got some like personal life stuff going on, not bad stuff, like good stuff. That we'll see how that shakes out. And I'll, if you know me, I'm sure I'll talk to you about them at some point as they happen.
Knock on wood, good vibes are manifesting.
Yes, good vibes, hopefully. And otherwise, excuse me. Otherwise, just trying to keep up with school and all that kind of stuff. How about you? Besides Elden Ring,
I think I have like one of the things I've talked about for a while is just like how I miss my virtual work. I've especially noticed a slight increase in the belly ever since I started going back to work, just because I feel like I've like less time to exercise.
Interesting. Because a lot of people would think like, oh, you'd get a belly from like being virtual at home because you could just like veg out in your space and you didn't have to like go places. So it's interesting that it's the opposite.
I find that I did eat more, but I had more motivation
workout
to work,
which I think is fine.
Like more. Yeah. Like it's not even just like sure. I would want to work out like 3 times a week. Like I actually wanted to like 5 times because I feel like I had a lot of energy to burn. Like I was eating more. I felt like more of that. So
Shaft 2023 can be jacked as hell.
So I have this. I have been applying a lot to like a lot of different positions that are just virtual.
Sure.
I do like my job right now, but like the big difference is if I can find one that pays the same and is virtual, like.
Yeah.
I have no loyalties to companies. All right, let's be honest here in a capitalist world.
I'm currently looking for something that is either virtual or it's like something within my like small city that I now live in.
Really,
because it's not like big cities like you live in where it's like even going like a few miles takes 60 minutes. It's like I can literally drive and I'm like 2 minutes I'm there.
Yeah.
And whatever. So it's like. That I don't mind as much, as long as like certain conditions, like I'm very sensitive to like work environments.
Yeah, I mean,
like I'm like more than the average person. Like I like if there are like bad vibes and like, stuff that I don't feel like people are being treated well. That affects me a lot more than the average person, and it makes me want to get out.
I mean, I definitely feel that in a lot of ways too, right? Like work environments are very important. Like it can be, for me, like I know, for me personally, like a personal, like, I don't know if I call it a trigger, but like something that like sets off my mood, like, or turns it down in a work. But like if I come in and the first thing I hear is like, a phone slam or someone just cussing under their breath, I'm going to get into the mood of like, I'm just going to put my earphones in and not interact with anybody. Like I'm immediately in that like, okay, this is the type of morning that some of my coworkers I have. Like I'm sorry, I'm not here to be your therapist. I'm not interacting with that. Like, so, that's I definitely agree with that in a lot of ways. And if I come in and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, good morning, chef," and I'm like, "Oh, okay," I feel a lot better. So I definitely understand like the good workplace. So I had a couple of emails in terms of like places getting back to me. So we'll see what happens with that. But other than that, like, Elden Ring. But okay, I'm not gonna go too far into it. If you're listening to this podcast and you're playing Elden Ring, please message me. I will talk my mouth off to you you about it. We'll talk anything and everything. I'm down for it. Be like, I have 25 hours into the game, and I think I'm only like 10% of the way through. Let's be completely honest. So, other than that, you and I, we've been running the forest.
Oh yes, yeah. So the Forest is like a game that I really enjoy, and Shaft got it for the first time. We played it last week, and I mean, I had fun, but I always have fun playing the Forest with friends. What did you think?
I liked it. I liked it too. I think my biggest gripe with it was like, just being the type of gamer where like I want a lot of things in front of me. It got to the point in the Forest where I'm like, okay, what do we do now? Like there wasn't like enough to do, and I actually thought like the difficulty would ramp up a little bit more in terms of like,
it will, it will.
Yeah,
it's just because we're on normal. It's
a
slower ramp up curve.
So I mean, I'm excited to touch back into it once you like. So I know like one of my big stipulations are, okay, the next time we get into it, I want you to start guiding me through, and maybe not directly to let's go to this objective, this, and we're done in like an hour. Like just let you be the guide point, whereas I was the guide point last time. And I think I'm going to enjoy it a lot. I enjoy the freedom. There's some fun things. You got to be a little cooperative. You got to do some searching. There's a lot of mysteries.
Some crafting, yeah.
Like you walk around, you discover something new.
Yeah.
So
you haven't seen for those of you that don't know. So the Forest came out like 8 years ago or something like that. It's a horror survival game where there's a plane crash and your son gets kidnapped. You're trying to find your son, and there's a bunch of these inhabitants on the island that are less than friendly. And I say inhabitants because they're not quite human. And so you have to survive both like finding food, finding fresh water, shelter, etc. But you also have to fight off these beings, and you collect lore pieces, within this like large island, and eventually try to find your son.
Yeah, you're not necessarily surviving like indefinitely. Like there is a goal, which is what I like. Yes. Like if it was one where you could just go indefinitely, like if it was like Minecraft, I'd probably be like, nah, this is like my mind's gonna blow up in a second. I'm happy there's a direction. Like we have a goal, which is why I'm in it.
Yeah, horror survival with some story elements. It's still it's very sandboxy. But there are a few different endings, kind of thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, yes, okay. There are a few different, and they are supposed to be making a sequel coming out. They originally said end of May 2022. I don't know how that's going to actually happen per se. But I'm excited about that because the gameplay trailer that they showed looks really cool. You play as the son, and you have like guns and stuff. Like it looks a little bit more like modernized, with new enemies and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm glad Chef and I finally have a game besides Magic that we can play together and we're enjoying.
Yeah. So by the time you're listening to this, we're already gonna go through another run at it. So let's see how that goes. I'm excited, but I think that's all we got to talk about. That's it. We're all talked out.
Yeah, that's
Magic's a boring game. Magic's a boring game. There's no organized play structure. There's no companies doing content or written articles or anything like that.
No.
So there's absolutely nothing to talk about in terms of this game at all. So I mean, why go on, right? Let's just keep it. One step at a time.
It's Chef just dropping on me. It's the last episode of the podcast.
Hey, speaking of, I no need to bring up anything political, but with some of the recent events of today, like, I mean, I think we should be considering work from home because the rising price of gas is about to get a little ridiculous.
True.
So,
has that hit Canada as much as it's hit the US?
So I'm actually going to do this as the final thing. Okay, what is because you guys have it in gallons, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I actually
are you asking about gallons to liters?
Yes, gallons to liters.
So 1 gallon is 3.79 liters. So Say for the sake, like 3.5 liters.
Okay, perfect. So how much is 1 gallon of gas for you right now?
So right now I believe it's like $4.20, which is quite high.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be well, and gas is always more expensive in Canada, I've noticed.
Exactly. Yeah. So you guys are gonna have it for $4 a gallon. Right now in Toronto, we have it approximately for $1.85 per liter. Right. So that is gonna be so $1.85.
Yeah. So like over $6 a gallon.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So and again, with what happened today as a recording, that is definitely gonna shoot up.
Yep. That is going to shoot up
100%, which really scares me. I am like, I don't know. I'm looking at some new walking shoes. Looking at how actually broken my bike is. Stuff like that. Like, So, I mean, if we're gonna talk about what's going on, watch out for this gas price to start walking. We're gonna end off this podcast. Thank you everyone for listening. Good. You know where to find us on our socials. On Twitter, on the Mill Discord. Thanks everyone for listening, and. We have no send off. Sorry, this is where it gets awkward. Have a good night. I don't know what's something. What do we say, Jack? Say something. Say something. Save me. Save me.
Hey, something.
Have a good night, guys. Something.
Have a good one. Thank you for listening.